PhD thesis entitled Land Use Transition and Historical Analysis. So a very quickly look to explain about the background of our lab and previous work involved into this research. This work is framed within the Mesopotamia project, and here you can see some results of the other linked research from lab partners and related to the LULC dynamics, wildlife extinctions, connectivity needs, wildlife participatory monitoring, and governance drivers with forestry companies, environmental risk in Misiones, and some strategic environmental analysis. And here you can see some scientific papers published related to land use in spinal ecoregion, repair and rehabilitation, and governance. And in the down of your screen, some next presentation that we have the next year in EcoSummit, we will present a symposium and some other work in SER Europe the next year too. Well, considering all this background and the information that we worked in 20 years of hard work, we are possible to perform this current research related to my PhD thesis in Mesopotamia, Argentina. At this case, we consider these major objectives related to determine the trajectories of land use and change, considering a wide variety of determinants, reconstructing land use and cover history to understand the current and future landscape change, and establish a theoretical framework to develop policies that promotes and improve sustainable land use. So the next slide show you some of the methodological process very quickly about that how we construct one timeline that we will present in the next slides. We base it on scientific, historical, cartographic, and we consider that the information from census was very important to our work, and obviously expert knowledge. We show some maps too related to land use maps, and we use the classical methods to classify the image, the Landsat image, using GIS and remote sensing. But currently, we start working with the Google Earth Engine, and so this is a work in progress. So the next slide show you the Mesopotamia area, the Mesopotamia region, and that is located at the northeast of Argentina in South America. It comprises 3 provinces and 7 ecoregions, an area of around 20 million of hectares. And at the right of your screen, you can see the land use map dated in 2015, and currently we are working in this updating this map. So we hope that we are presenting the next year in other congress. So the next slide is to illustrate it easier the land change from a study area between the 1984 to the currently. So here you can see some change from native forests in Misiones to currently due to the agriculture expansion. And down you have you can see other example about the conversion of native forests to tree plantation and dams. So this is a currently image. The third example is from Entre Rios, and you can see some change due to the soybean crops. And finally, in Corrientes, you can see from converse from wetlands to rice crops. So as you can see here, there are a lot of areas very degraded, and in the next slide we show you some restoration needs maps that we did it to present in SER Congress in 2017, showing restoration needs of the major degraded ecoregion. In this case are 5 ecoregions. Look at the table above. So here we want to show you some restoration needs by ecoregion, and we obtained that, for example, for some grassland ecoregions like Campos y Malezales and Pastizal Pampeano, they have around 60% of the areas highly degraded. So in the slide of this reality, the question at this point was, how did we get here? So to resolve this question and base it on the information that previously I showed in the methodological process, we developing a timeline that summarized more than 500 years of land use history to know the major causes and how, when, and why this change started, and understand their future trajectories. So this is one. At this point, this is the main, the major result that we have. This summarizes the drivers, land use transition, economic activities, and other milestones such as introduction of livestock, railway construction, industrial plantation, boom of soybean crops, the start of the exports of pork meat to China recently this year, and some others transition and land use land cover that are present in our study area. I think the major challenge at this point, and obviously of this result, was trying to detect similar patterns and processes between the three provinces, because these provinces have a highly heterogeneity in their history development. We were able to integrate all this information to development these trajectories of the land use change. So we were able to develop them to propose 5 stages of the development of land use transition, land use historical. So as such, this graphic takes a time to look at very detailed. The next slide will try to summarize it. So here you can see that we try to put some information such the 5 stage with their respective milestones and years. But I think the most important thing here is that we can obtain it for historical land use transition to our study area. So in the down of your screen, you can see these 4 major LUT, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. The LUT 1 is related to agriculture and livestocking, that was between the first and second stage. The LUT 2 is related to the landscape and the first important change that happened between the second and third stage. The LUT 3 is related to the start of worldwide exportation and high economic development of our study area between the third and fourth stage, and was very influenced for the immigration, the creation of agricultural settlements, and railroad construction. And finally, the LUT 4 is related to an agricultural intensification, high-tech, introduction of high production value crops such as soybean and their derivatives, and introduction of exotic tree plantations such as pinus and eucalyptus. Here I want to show some example about the major land cover change, but native grasslands and their converts to uses such as agricultural areas. So, this happens in LUT 2, but the same agricultural areas that has more than 200 years are converted currently in commercial plantations. So we are talking about such a second transition. So I want to highlight here a very local concept that is in Spanish word, pampeanización, that is referred to the displacement of Pampas model used in provinces such as Buenos Aires, Santa Fe, Córdoba, to other areas, focusing on grain and oilseeds production. Well, in this slide, we developed a short conceptual model that summarizes very general the 6 main land cover land uses, highlight the main relationships with agriculture, infrastructure, and timber production. And but we are working now in more detailed analysis. We identify based on scientific review and expert knowledge around 12 major causes of this land change around the 500 minutes, 500 years. So you can see in the right of your screen the index of land use transition. That this is an index that we are working now called INLUT to determine influence level, and it's based on 5 kinds of indicators: demographic, technological, agricultural, forestry, and economy. And in this moment we are in process. It's a working in process, and we are weighting the variables. To finally, the last slide, some conclusions. We consider that exists an intensification of land use on areas previously converted to other uses, especially between the 18th and 19th century. The main land use transition are from native forests and natural grassland to crops such as soybean and tree plantations such as pinus and eucalyptus. The presence of crops with a high production value, again, the soybean crops. And we consider that exists a displacement of land use between the 3 provinces at a region and global level. And some next tips: finish with the INLUT, develop some maps of GIS, and consider 2 more topics of displacement and telecoupled system, especially with soybean, meat, and tree plantations. Well, thank you so much. If you have some questions, you feel free to write us, or you can write it. Sorry for the time, but there are a lot of information to show. So thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.